Hi, I'm Rob Van Raphorst. Welcome to MBANow. Congress has passed another stimulus bill that will have wide-reaching effects on our industry. And with us to discuss it today is our chief lobbyist, Bill Killmer. Bill, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Rob. Glad to be here.
So Congress has passed a $1.9 trillion stimulus bill. What's the effect going to be on both the single-family and commercial multifamily markets?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Another round of stimulus, this one obviously pushed by the new administration, the Biden American Rescue Plan. It was named. A lot of important components that will help renters and homeowners. The income support, so extension of the unemployment insurance benefits this time, grossed up $300 a week above what the normal range would have been prior to the pandemic through September. And then direct payments, stimulus, $1,400 this time. Now these are income targeted, and there are some tax implications for the unemployment insurance benefits that differ from that stimulus that was passed in last December and the previous efforts in 2020, Rob. So that's important because it's important for people to be able to pay for their food and to keep the lights on, but obviously also to have help directly with income support for their mortgages and for their rent. But then on top of that, there's another round of another roughly $25 billion in emergency rental assistance that can be used for a lot of broad purposes tied to rent, covering rent or arrearages or utilities or home energy cost. I've got my cheat sheet here because the criteria really changed a little bit with this package, as well as other expenses related to housing. So implementation of that on top of the last tranche of rental assistance will be really key in terms of helping renters and in turn, our members on the finance side of that chain. And then there's a $10 billion homeowners assistance fund, which was not in any of the prior stimulus packages. And that can be used for a broad range of purposes. It'll be administered through state housing finance agencies, but for hardships related to COVID, help for supporting mortgage payments or deeper loan modifications, utility payments, T&I payments, HOA dues, and other kinds of support to prevent the loss of home equity, delinquency, default, or foreclosure. So we're really pleased that, and this assistance is targeted towards the LMI cohort, that this is additional support that has not been in the prior packages that were COVID relief related. And then there's $100 million in additional funding for housing counseling that will also be helpful for people that are working through those mortgage-related problems.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot happening in this bill that's going to affect us, but there's also a lot really happening now that there's a new administration and a new Congress. What's percolating on Capitol Hill?
Well, this was the first 100-day, point of focus, certainly for the White House and for the majority in the House and Senate in the Congress, and they passed this hoping to pick up a little bit more Republican support, but along partisan lines. Now they're pivoting to what the president campaigned on as Build Back Better, but it's really about economic growth, infrastructure, climate provisions, and energy-related provisions. And they're talking about $3 trillion in spending that's targeted towards not only surface transportation and infrastructure projects, but a lot of those other elements that I described. And how you pay for that on the heels of all the spending that's been done during the pandemic is a real important topic of conversation, because that could mean changes to the tax code, and that could impact certainly our membership. And so, Rob, our board of directors established a blue ribbon tax task force that's made up of members from both the commercial multifamily and the residential side of our membership, and the sub niches, in terms of the way that they run their business operations within both sides of the house there. So obviously leadership from Combog and Resbog and others throughout the industry. It's co-chaired by Matt Rocco and Peter Norden. And that task force has been working to try to get ready for when the Congress pivots to some of these tax changes, so that we can, defend the industry's interest as we did 4 years ago during tax reform discussions.
Let's shift gears for a second. So we're going to combine some of our major conference into our big spring conference coming up shortly. What can we expect?
Well, in April, we're going to hear from Dr. Calabria, director of the FHFA still, with the overlap as an independent regulator into this new administration, a lot going on in his space, his oversight of the GSEs, his decisions with respect to loan flexibilities. And so a lot of questions that he will address that are impacting our members' business operations on the single and the multifamily side. We can expect to hear from officials from HUD, hopefully the newly confirmed HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge, who we've invited, but certainly others from the White House potentially and the National Economic Council, perhaps folks from the CFPB. So, that's always a great time in the spring, particularly with the combination of these major conferences to try to talk public policy. Rob, I'm actually really excited on the heels of us talking about what the new Congress is doing. We're going to have a session tied to the reception that we normally do for our advocacy programs, MORPAC and the Mortgage Action Alliance, called What's Cooking with Politics. And we'll talk about some of what the Biden-Harris administration is working on, how the Congress is working its agenda, and how there's already conversation about the midterm elections in 2022. So really looking forward to that session as a part of the combined conference as well.
Yeah, as you said earlier, there's so much happening right now in Washington. So to get insight as to the machinations both in the administration and on Capitol Hill will be really insightful. Thanks, Bill. Really appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, always.